Guys, what's up? Matt here from Loon Outdoors. Today we're tying a New Year's inspired intruder style fly. In the vise, OPST shank, some Vivas 50D, and the Loon bobbin. So we'll start out here by locking in some size medium double pupil eyes from Hairline. They are black. I'm going to do a figured 8 followed by what I like to call the lasso maneuver. And we'll finish it off with some more figure 8s, just really ensuring that this is going to stay right where we want it. 50D does a great job of doing that. We'll just continue wrapping down the shank. Now this is a long OPST shank. I only buy the long ones because it seems like you get the same amount in the package, and you can bend and break them as needed. Next up, we have some Senyo intruder wire and an Ahrex HR482 stinger hook. It's a new hook to the market for the steelhead world. It's like kind of one of those offset eye stinger styled hooks. It's absolutely laser beam sharp and really stout. I've put this on my scale and tried to bend it out and didn't really have a ton of realistic weights that this bent out at. So I'm going to double my wire back over, and we're just going to secure that in place. Honestly, with the soft coating on the Senyo's wire and the amount of wraps that you have on there, I would be hard pressed to see this ever pull out. So I'm not going to glue it or do anything like that. I feel it's an extra step, and with all the binding agents that we're working with these days, so highly unlikely that it's ever going to pull out. So we have a little bit of Rhea, and I'm using Rhea because I like its nature. And this is a Senyo's chromatic brush. It's produced by EP, and this happens to be some sort of it's like a white and holographic color. So I'm going to go ahead and tie this in. This is just going to be in lieu of doing like a traditional dubbing bump or something like that. I kind of like the random length of this brush, and the added flash never really hurts either. You're going to notice I do use some wire cutters. I don't want to use my good scissors for cutting through stainless steel wire, even though it's rather slim. I'll use the tips of my scissors just to kind of flare this out a bit, just to see where my profile will be at. And next up, I'm just going to kind of check out this Rhea feather. It's a natural fiber, and kind of like with the dubbing brush, I don't mind it being uneven. I'm not here to win a beauty contest. I like the uneven lengths. I feel like it actually adds a little bit of depth to the fly, and changes the profile taper throughout the pattern. And all I'm going to do to start this off, it's kind of a woolly bugger, I won't lie to you, is I'm just going to put a random clump of fibers on there and gently rotate them around the shank of the hook. As I tighten them down, they'll rotate out. And you can see I have some long, some short, and again, that's my own interpretation on it, adding some depth to the fly. Next up, this is some mini flat fly braid in shimmer silver. It's a really cool color to give your pattern some inner glow. Lays down flat, and it's been a great replacement for me thus far for bodies on intruder style flies. I'm going to be a little bit picky and start this up further forward so I have a nice smooth body all the way throughout. One thing you'll notice is that the fly is going to be pretty smooth underneath. So I'm going to take a few turns, and this is just like a pre-built spacer that I've done for this fly. Next, I'm going to tag in some gunmetal blue, which is just a cool color of Uniwire. It's not overly poppy and bright, and this is going to be utilized for securing our next material, which is going to be more Rhea. So I'm a little bit off camera here, but it's a little bit tricky to do. So all I've done here is to just strip the rhea, and there's like a really fine like outer layer that you can get from rhea. So it almost makes it like this natural brush effect. Some people see it as a downfall, but as I've already stated, I personally enjoy the various lengths of these materials. I don't find that to be a problem for me. You know, if you're doing this for some sort of like perfect fly contest rather than fishing, I could see you being more particular, but we're not going there. So I'm going to go ahead and palmer forward that mini fly flat braid, and that's going to give this like a really nice iridescent inside body. The ray is rather long and does kind of get in the way, so you kind of just keep your eye on it, watch it, make sure you're not wrapping too many, any of your fibers up in your body material. We'll do a quick fold back on this because we will ultimately end up putting in a little dubbing bump up front. And now when you wrap your rhea, you want to kind of brush it and kind of preen it backwards. And I'm just going to have this stand out as much as possible. There's going to be a lot of fibers from this rhea moving and undulating in the water. So it's a pretty cool pattern. And like with any natural material, you're going to have variation. Realistically, this is a really expensive woolly bugger at the end of the day. It's probably the most relatable fly that you could attribute this to. So I'll go ahead and trim off my excess. I am going to build another collar, but I want there to be a little bit of a prop. So we'll go ahead and secure this in nice and tight. And you can see tons of profile, minimal materials. And right now I'm going ahead and I'm pulling the wire through, securing the rhea in place. And this is kind of the same way that you would do it with like a stimulator, maybe a little bit in reverse, or a woolly bugger, something like that. I'm just wrapping it through the actual stem to give it a little bit more durability. Because of the length of the actual fibers, you're going to have to pick a few out every once in a while, unless you're just aces at wrapping stuff. And you want to do this a little bit gently. This rhea is really fine, which is kind of why I love it. Doesn't hold a lot of water, has a ton of movement, and it's almost waxy in nature. So we're going to bring back in our Senyo's chromatic brush, and that's going to help us create a nice little dubbing bump and a head profile. I do go a little bit more overboard on my head profiles. I figure that they are going to create a slight hydraulic effect, meaning as they're swimming through the water, they're going to stabilize direct water around them so that the rest of your materials are kind of able to undulate even in a heavier flow, a little bit more uninhibited. So a few wraps there, secure it down, trim away. And you're going to want to pick this out. And you guys can tie this in, blacks, oranges, blues, greens, whatever floats your boat. Change the colorways up a million different ways. And just be really stoked on a super confident fly pattern. So we're going to put in that rhea again. This is the rhea that I stripped earlier. And we're going to go for a few wraps here, just creating a really big, solid profile. And it's really awesome. Rhea used to be really hard to get, and I would hoard it like, gold doubloons. But now it's available through, people like Hairline, and they have it dyed in all sorts of juicy colors. So I feel like it's a pretty readily available material, and it's one of the only ones that you can do for steelhead flies for this palmerine effect. Next up, this is just a simple craft fur brush. Again, it's a synthetic, it's not going to hold a ton of water, has a ton of movement, and has a little bit of pre-built in pearlescent flash, which I like. I think that's a really great added feature. And we'll do a few wraps with this guy. It's a pretty hardy brush, so you probably don't need to do too much here. I wouldn't go overboard and, you know, build a whole fly out of it, although you definitely could. So just a little preening, little bit of little tidying work, and you can see there's actually multiple layers of that craft fur in there. So it is going to stabilize the rest of the fly. Next up, we're just going to bring in some flash, and I chose blue. I felt like it was a fun, interesting color. I definitely fished this colorway. Might not be my first one, but this was, like I said, more of a fun tribute to the new year, and you know, thinking about fireworks and everything else that comes along with it. So maybe this is Flyerworks. So I'm going to take about 6 strands of this flash, put it over the top, and then what I do with the excess is I start to bring it down, and I'll bring it down the side of the eyes, under the bottom of the eye, and just position it around so it's circumferential on the fly. So once we have that all squared away, I'm going to throw some Lady Amherst in here as well, and just kind of over the top, just to give it kind of a shell back type look. Blue and silver, blue and white, they're real confident colors for me coastally, when fish are fresh out of the estuary, or even in an estuary situation, depending on your tidal flows that day. Sometimes I really like those lighter patterns for steelheading. So last material we're going to bring in is going to be a little bit of a guinea. For some reason, the speckly spots, I can't tie a steelhead fly pretty much without it. And overall, it's just a really, really cool material. And the barbules on it actually have a lot of rigidity and stiffness, which is something I like. Again, creating that hydraulic effect. It's almost like having a big boulder in the river, and you're imagining that the head of your fly is that big boulder, and behind it is where all the fish are sitting with minimal effort. So I like to have my my tailing materials do a little bit of minimal effort. So we'll do a few wraps with the guinea. Again, not over dressing. The fly may look pretty solid up front, but I can assure you it's really, really light. It's probably more of an optical illusion due to the lighting during the video than anything. I'll go ahead and whip finish it, and we'll call it a day. You could color the head, you know, add UV cure, whatever you want. But you can see the amount of movement in that fly is absolutely ridiculous. The profile's pretty huge, and all in all, it's a great pattern. Appreciate you guys tuning in. Cheers, Happy New Year's. We'll catch you next time.